whether breakfast as a regular daily meal was consistently structured for peasants in all regions and periods, or whether the pattern varied more by labour demands, custom and season. In some places and times, an early bite is common. In others, the first more substantial meal comes later in the morning after work has already begun. Medieval schedules a less balanced nutrition plan and more eat when you can, and hope God respects your effort. And what are you washing all this down with? Not a frothy cappuccino, tragically. Most likely weak ale. Now, before anyone gets too excited, this is not peasants stumbling through the dawn absolutely hammered on breakfast beer, like a village music festival has gotten out of hand. Weak ale, or small ale, is usually low in alcohol, and commonly consumed because water quality is unreliable in many places. Brewing could make liquid safer, and ale also provides calories. So yes, children might drink it too. Medieval hydration is less 8 glasses a day, and more everyone is technically sipping soup-adjacent breadwater. You take a swallow. It is flat, faintly sour, and somehow both refreshing and vaguely judgmental, but it is liquid, and liquid matters. A quirky tidbit? Some bread in medieval households could become so stale and tough that old loaves were sometimes used almost like edible plates or trenchers in wealthier contexts. Though peasants were less likely to waste bread in such dramatic style, still, the general principle remains. Medieval bread had a work ethic. This was not the soft supermarket loaf that collapses emotionally if you look at it too hard. This bread could survive weather, argument, and perhaps minor siege conditions. And here is where the hunger becomes sneaky. Because technically, you have eaten. Your stomach is no longer entirely empty. But your body knows better. The meal is often heavy on bulk, light on protein, and not nearly enough for the amount of labour ahead. You are fueling a human body expected to spend hours bent, lifting, walking, hauling, weeding, digging, and enduring weather using what is, in modern terms, a nutritional strategy best described as good luck out there. If you're in a season of relative plenty, maybe there is cheese. A little. Hard, salty, precious. Maybe some curds. Maybe a bit of butter if the household has access and has not already mentally assigned it to some more important future need. Maybe apples in autumn. Maybe nuts. But even then, these are additions, not guarantees. The room around you is slowly waking. Someone is tying a head covering. Someone is trying to quiet a child. Someone is scraping the bottom of the pot with the seriousness of a person who knows every spoonful matters. There is no lazy breakfast chatter about weekend plans. There is only the silent mathematics of survival. How much grain is left? How long until the next market? Will the garden produce enough? Did the hens lay? Can we stretch the peas? Can we pretend this is enough and not mention it out loud? That is another reason peasants are always tired and hungry. Food is never just food. It is inventory. Anxiety. Forecasting. Memory. Every meal carries the shadow of the next one. And psychologically, that matters. Modern people often imagine hunger as a dramatic emergency, but for many poor households in the past, the more common reality is chronic near-enoughness. You are not necessarily starving every single day in the most catastrophic sense. You are often just. Not fully fed. Not fully restored. Not fully replenished. It is the nutritional version of always charging your phone to 17% and then asking it to run every app at once. You lick the spoon, maybe wipe the bowl with bread if there is enough to justify such elegance, and then the meal is over before it ever really feels like it began. There is no second helping unless fortune has made a scheduling error. Outside, morning has arrived properly now. The day is waiting, which is rude, because you personally were not consulted. And already, after your grand feast of boiled grain and determination, the hunger is only sleeping lightly. It will wake again soon. Very soon. Probably while you are carrying something heavy. The bowl is empty, your stomach is unconvinced, and now comes the part where medieval life really commits to the bit. You leave the cottage and step into the morning damp, where the cold sits low over the ground and the path to the fields is already worn smooth by generations of people who also would have preferred a quieter profession. The village is stirring around you. A dog barks. Somewhere, a cartwheel complains with the voice of an elderly ghost. A few neighbours are already moving, shoulders wrapped in rough wool, faces half awake, everyone wearing the same expression modern commuters reserve for airport security lines. Nobody is cheerful enough to be suspicious, but nobody is exactly thriving either. You walk because almost everything in your life involves walking. Walking to fields, to water, to church, to the Lord's mill, to gather wood, to fetch, to carry, to return, to do it all again tomorrow. Medieval peasants are basically endurance athletes who never signed the consent form. And then you reach the land that rules your life. Maybe it is your family's strip in the open fields. Maybe it is the Lord's demesne land, where you owe labour. Maybe it is a patch of common pasture or rough edge ground, where every tuft of grass has already been negotiated by 6 households and 1 extremely judgmental goose. However it appears, this is where your calories go to die. One of the mainstream facts about medieval peasant life is that agricultural labour was intensely physical, repetitive and seasonal. Most people in medieval Europe lived in rural communities and depended directly on farming. That means your body is not just used, it is used daily, often from childhood onward, in ways that pile strain onto strain without rest, recovery, or a foam roller in sight. Today, like many days, begins with bending. Bending to weed. Bending to plant. Bending to inspect. Bending because the earth, in its eternal wisdom, insists on keeping everything important down near your ankles. If you are ploughing, that is its own special conversation with misery. A plough team, usually oxen in many peasant settings, because horses are more expensive and fancy, is slow, heavy and stubborn in the deeply personal way only large farm animals can be. Oxen are strong, yes, but they are not exactly interested in your productivity goals. You guide the plough through heavy soil, while mud clings to your shoes and your hands ache around the handles. If the soil is wet, the plough drags like it resents your family specifically. If the soil is dry, it resists like a bureaucrat. And this is where the tiredness starts to make perfect sense, because you are asking a half-fed body to perform industrial labour with no machinery, no ergonomic design, and no guaranteed reward. You are not getting your steps in. You are in a long-term relationship with exhaustion. Your shoulders pull. Your back complains. Your fingers stiffen in the chill. The first warmth of the day does not come from comfort. It comes from work. You generate heat the old-fashioned way, by becoming a draft animal with opinions. A hoe rises and falls, a spade bites earth, a bundle is lifted, a furrow is checked. The tasks are not glamorous, but they are relentless. Medieval fieldwork is not usually dramatic battle movie labour with thunder and violins. It is more often the quieter cruelty of repetition. Lift, step, bend, carry, scrape, haul. Again, again, again. And because your breakfast was essentially 1 bowl of warm resignation, your energy starts leaking almost immediately. That is the hidden genius of peasant hunger. It is not always the giant collapse. Sometimes it is just that by mid-morning your arms feel heavier than they should, your legs drag a little, your concentration softens, and every tool begins to feel like it has secretly gained weight out of spite. Historians still argue whether peasant diets in some regions may have been slightly better in certain periods than older stereotypes suggest, especially where dairy, legumes, or access to commons help supplement the basics. And that is fair. Medieval peasant life is not one single universal misery setting. Some communities do better than others. Some years are kinder. Some diets are less bleak. But even in the more optimistic version, agricultural labour still asks a great deal from the body. A very great deal. And your body, poor thing, is not just working against labour, it is working against weather. If it is spring, the ground is wet and cold and your feet may stay damp for hours. If it is summer, the sun climbs and begins its long campaign of personal insult. If it is autumn, everything becomes urgent. If it is winter, the fields may rest a little, but your chores absolutely do not. You are always carrying the season on your back. There is also the pace of communal labour. Fields are often worked in shared rhythms, especially in open field systems where strips lie side by side. You are not labouring in isolation as some lone romantic peasant with excellent cheekbones and a wistful soundtrack. You are surrounded by the village economy in motion. Other people are weeding, sowing, guiding animals, calling out, adjusting tools, muttering at the weather, muttering at each other, muttering at destiny. And because humans remain humans in every century, there is occasional grumbling, occasional gossip, and occasional deeply unserious commentary on someone's farming technique. Medieval agriculture may be physically brutal, but it still contains the eternal village pastime of quietly judging how another household is handling turnips. A quirky little tidbit. In some places, people held all kinds of weather lore, planting customs and seasonal superstitions about when to sow or reap. Saints' days, moon phases, local sayings, these could shape agricultural timing right alongside practical experience. So yes, while you are bent double in a muddy field, there is a decent chance someone nearby also has a very strong opinion about what the moon is doing to the beans. Your hands, meanwhile, are becoming a topographical map of labour. Calluses are not a badge of rugged aesthetic masculinity here, they are survival equipment. Blisters become hard skin. Cuts become scars. Fingernails are permanently involved in a losing war with dirt. Medieval peasant hands tell the truth even when no one else has the energy. And then there is hauling. Nothing in peasant life is ever simply over there. Everything important must be carried from somewhere to somewhere else while gravity heckles you. Bundles of brushwood. Buckets of water. Sheaves. Tools. Manure, because yes, fertilizer has always had a strong and memorable personality. You lift, balance, trudge, set down, and immediately get told by reality to do it again. Modern gym culture would call this functional strength. Medieval life calls it Tuesday. By now the morning has moved on, and your body has already spent far more than your breakfast ever gave back. Your stomach is quietly beginning to notice. Not yet a crisis, just a reminder. A low, familiar emptiness opening beneath the work like a second field. And still, the labour continues. Because crops do not care whether you slept badly. Weeds do not care whether your back hurts. Soil does not care whether you are spiritually available. The medieval peasant learns early that tiredness is not a reason to stop. It is simply the condition under which everything must still be done. You keep going because